guys, give you a little background story. 03 Liberty, it's got the big 3.7 in it. I got towed in this weekend. This one's been in a previous video actually with a water pump that we put on it, but that's neither here nor there. It died on the guy in the Taco Bell drive-thru. He's trying to make a run for the border and his Jeep left him walking. Just like he shut the key off, he said. So I got towed in and dropped off, and I went out there this morning, and of course battery's dead, you know, must have cranked it dead. So I threw a jumper on it and it started. So I was like, that sucks. Left it sitting out in front of my door out there running, and about 15 minutes later I go up check on it and it's shut off and it just reeks like gas. I cranked it over, it kind of acts like it's flooded, but I don't know, it's kind of bizarre. I threw the battery charger on, so we're getting it charged up, and then we'll check for some codes and kind of take it from there, see what's missing. Well, we're going code red over here. Had to take and pop the charger. I had charger on here, 20 amps, you know, no big deal. Your alternator puts out, you know, 100, whatever, more than 20. And plugged the Varus in, turned the key on. I'm sitting over there getting ready to put the info in the scan tool, and I smell something that doesn't smell right. Burning plastic. I turn around and this friggin' smoke is pouring out of this coil. So I come over and shut the key off real quick and unhook the charger. I don't know if you can still, just a little bit. I think it's coming out. There's a little smoke coming out of something down here, and it ain't good, I'll tell you that. So I'm gonna take and pull this coil out. Crap, I'm glad I didn't go in the office and let this thing sit out here and charge. You know, I typically don't walk away with the key on, but sometimes we do. Wow, hotter than a banshee. Look at that. I don't even know what the heck that is. I kind of want to touch it, but I know this baby is toasty. Look at that coil. Is that wild or what? Well, there's your problem, lady. Whew, man, it stinks in here. It's only 330 degrees, you know, no big deal. Wow. Man, I'm really glad I didn't walk away from this, which is always my habit as we get busy. But yeah, man, it's like 330 degrees. That's hot. It's not that hot on top. It's only about 150 where I'm holding it, but that's toasty. Something bad happened. I'm going to turn the key back and I'll plug in this intake air temp sensor. My battery charger back to it. These things all the time with the key on, like I say. We're set, yeah, we're on our 10, 20, yeah, we're on our 20 amp scale. Turn the key back on and we'll keep an eye on it this time. I don't see anything. Sheesh. Everything looks good. Scared me. So just for grins and giggles here, with that coil unplugged, I'm gonna try to start it. Like I say, this thing, you know, reeked like gas when I went outside to get it. You know, it's kind of, I don't know if it's flooded out. I'll just reach in and try to start it just for the heck of it. Nothing there. I'm going to show you something I observed. So just reaching in and cranking it. So it's key on, engine off. What do we got? We got one something there, 123, 622. I did not see the tach moving when I was cranking it. Okay. I don't know if that stands true on this vehicle. I am going to try to put it into clear flood mode here, so I'm going to put it all the way to the floor. I'm going to crank it. Okay, that was a little something there, a little start stall. Oh, there goes our tach. Okay, I'm going to hold it all the way to the floor again. we're getting a little stall there. Try that again all the way to the floor. Again all the way to the floor. Sounds like we're only running on about 3 maybe. I got it right to the 1. See if she'll idle. She didn't want to idle. We do have an engine light. Wow. Sounds like a couple of my old derby cars. Alright, so I'm giving it just a little bit of throttle. Just to keep it running here. Sounds like we're missing more than just that one cylinder we got unplugged. Alright, well, I'll tell you what. They just filled my shop with smoke. How much good this thing did. Ooh. Wow, get rid of these toxic fumes here. Yeah. Alright, well, we are fumigating. Let's go in here and check the codes. Of course, we're going to have an injector code, or a coil code. Or maybe we're not going to have a coil code. How come we don't have a coil code? PO320, no crank reference. Why do we have no code for the coil? That doesn't even make sense. That coil sat there and melted on us, just like the driver was stuck on. And we just ran it, what, 2 seconds ago? Well, that's, man, this thing's getting pretty weird pretty quick here. You know what, before I walk away from this, let me go back in the codes here. I'm gonna unplug another coil. Okay, so that's the driver. I just unplugged the driver's side front coil. Let me go crank this over. I just can't believe we don't have coil code. So it's sitting there kind of half running. Yeah, we have no... Can this thing not set codes for open circuit in the coil primary? Kind of looking that way. Plug that coil back in. I see we got a code for a crank sensor. What I'm concerned with a little bit is the fact that that coil went in meltdown. So this is just a two-wire coil. So we should have our battery feed, you know, when the auto shutdown relay on a Chrysler, when they turn on, it should provide, I think that's probably where the power comes from, but regardless, we should have, you know, 12 volts. Got our test light right here, we can just verify that. I think it should have 12 volts, key on, engine off. It appears to have had, otherwise it wouldn't have went in a meltdown mode. So one of these should be probably battery positive. I think. No, it must be it's only key on engine cranking. Let me check it to a known good here. Okay, so yeah, it must be key on engine cranking. It must have battery voltage. Okay, and then, you know, then it's supplied to ground to the PCM to fire the driver. Why was that coil burning up then over here? Does key on? Is the key on? Yeah, key's on. That doesn't make sense to me. Let me grab a probe. I'm gonna make sure that I'm down inside that connector far enough. Test it here. So let me grab got a little back probe. We'll go back to battery negative. Go on the front side of this connector again, make sure the pins. Yeah, there definitely is no full-time power there. Okay, so it must be only when the engine's cranking. We can assume that. So that probably in that case does come from the auto shutdown relay. Then, in that case, what I want to do is grab the Noid light. I just want to see if we got some injector pulse. Yeah, injector pulse. Using the wrong tool for the right job. I want to see if we have any ignition pulse here. So when we crank this over, our Noid light should flash. No, it's not going to burn up the computer. So let me crank it over and just see. I'm just kind of curious as to why that coil went into meltdown mode, key on, engine off. I still don't understand that. Well, it looks like we had it a little bit, then it went away. Is that what I saw? Kind of hard to see. Can't really tell. Well, that is bizarre. I don't know why that happened. It's definitely not shorted. We know that for sure. Otherwise, this thing would have stayed lit steady, and that's mostly what I wanted to see at first. Still has me kind of scratching my head why that coil melted, but I guess that's either here or there. We do have a crank sensor code. So I think the wisest thing to do at this point is to simply test the crank sensor. We can do that right here at the PCM. And I guess I'll continue to think on that coil. That is bizarre. I'll take it. Not our charger for right now. We shouldn't really need that a ton more. Should have a little bit of a surface charge out we can deal with. I looked on a wiring diagram, and it appears that it's going to be in connector 1 of this ECM. I'll take the little plastic cover off it. And it was pin number 8 and 18. So I'm going to shut the key off. Keys off. I'll take and unplug this connector. I'll get a light and I'll see if we can find these pins. And I've got us a couple wires here. I'm going to get probed into the cam and the crank. Got some back probes. We'll probe into those. We'll get our scope over here. We'll get that hooked up and at least see what's going on with the crank code and see if we can make some sense of that. I'm still thinking on the coil bit there. Definitely doesn't make sense. I'm not going to just sit here and think about it loud, but I'll see if I can find these wire colors that we need, this black and gray, and then whatever tan and yellow I think was the other wire, and I'll see if we can't get hooked up. So I got our scope. There's my ground wire. Taking throw an alligator clip on here. Just go right on the battery positive or battery negative. Don't mind me. Let me turn the key on here, hopefully without casualty. Okay, key is on. Now, both of these sensors should be Hall effect 5-volt sensors. Okay, so I got this set up. So our live reading right now, key on, engine off, is essentially 5.18, so basically 5.2 volts on each sensor, key on, engine off. I don't have a known good cam crank correlation on 3.7 on this engine. But what we're going to be looking for is basically cam signal and crank signal. Presumably we're going to be missing the crank signal, or possibly I guess, or some problem with it there to set a code, but it kind of wants to start, so I don't really know what's happening. Maybe we got some kind of weird signal. See, I just got this on a 2-second scale, 2-second time basis, or across the screen. So I'll get you guys up where you can see it. We'll crank it over and we'll see what we have, and then still don't know why that coil burned up. All right, we're on record. Let me go crank it, see what happens. We got nothing? How do we got 5 volts? Nothing happening. We got a good ground. We definitely got a good ground. How's this thing running with no cam and no crank signal? I don't have this on. What's going on here? That is totally bizarre. Make sure I got the right pin. Okay, so that's channel 2. Going back into my cam signal here. Okay, I just didn't have a good probe there on the cam. Turn that peak detect off now. Okay, there's our cam signal. So we got a cam signal. Let me oops, sorry. I mean, you guys zoomed in, can't see what's going on, but let me fiddle with my crank back probe here. That one's kind of in a tough spot. Move this up where we can see it. There's our cam. Let's grab a trigger here to kind of get where we can see this thing. Alright. Okay. Alright, so there's our cam. Fiddling with the back probe here in the crank sensor. That one's a little tricky. It's on the bottom side of this connector. But it feels like I got a good connection there. Of course, we're just picking up some noise because we've still got that in peak detect mode, I imagine, still, don't we? Turn that off now that we know we've got real signals here. But it's looking like we've got no crank, so maybe this engine can run just off the cam sensor solely. Because it looks like we've got a normal, Chrysler type cam signal here. Usually it's like they'll have like a 443. This one looks like it might be, of course can't get it to hold still. I'll have to stop and record it here. See if that lets us see the whole picture. Yeah, 1321. Yeah, we'd have to have another trigger to see what a full 720 is, but this doesn't look unusual to me. But it appears that our crank signal is just there at 5.21 volts. I think to verify that we have a good connection, the best thing to do at this point is go underneath it and we'll probe the crank sensor from the bottom side. Like I said, it's kind of tricky where it is in this ECM harness, but I'm pretty confident we got a good connection. We'll do a couple quick circuit checks on this. I guess one thing we can do right now, well, it's still running. Let's poke back out of here for a second. Let's go right back into our scan data. See if we've lost our sync signal. That's going to be another big clue for us. Okay, yeah, right there. Current sync lost. But what's interesting, it's still showing a crank count. I wonder if this is a substituted value, if it is indeed just running off the cam sensor solely and it's just substituting a crank count. It's a very good possibility, but yeah, definitely sync lost. So it is very suspicious of a crank sensor at this point. We better go underneath and have a look. Alright, so here we are underneath the Jeep. I'll show you guys where this crank sensor lives. So she's just hiding right here on the passenger side of the oil pan, right beside that converter. So we should have our 5-volt reference, our signal return, and our ground. So we'll check that. We'll do a quick bypass test. See what we got down here, and we'll check the signal. So I'm just going to take and unplug it. First thing I want to do I'm gonna hook my test light to power. And before I stuck this vehicle up in here, I actually was smart enough to hook a jump wire to battery positive, so anything that we touch, well, that's not gonna be very bright. Okay, there we go. I was gonna say anything we touch that's ground should light up our test light, which we can see there. So we know that the black with gray is our signal return, so that one's our signal return. Orange on a Chrysler is usually ground, or power. So this middle one is probably our ground. Yeah, we can see we've got a nice bright test light there. So that tells us that we have our ground. Let me just unclip this wire here. I left hanging down. Okay, so we've got a good ground. I guess the next thing that we can do, let me grab the wires for our scope. Because we don't have a live reading for this on a scan tool, doing a bypass test and looking at scan data won't work. However, what will work is taking our test light. This is probably a pull down style sensor. So we'll hook our test light to ground there. Just wanted to check, make sure I have power. So I think, because we got the key on right now. If I touch this to the crank signal return wire, we might hear it kick on the fuel pump and stuff. Yep, you hear that? I'll wait for Josh to get on that lift. I know sometimes that can be loud in the video. Okay, ready? So you hear it trigger the fuel pump? Yep. Ready one more time? So that is pretty much, that's that. That's our bypass test. One thing I do want to check, just to be 100% certain, I mean, it looks like we just have your classic crank sensor burned up coil scenario. That's real classic, right? Jeez, why did that coil burn up? Key on, engine off. It has no power, no ground going to it. And it burned up. I don't understand. But I want to probe the crank signal wire here. Let's see, I'm going to find, we use the same ground we just used on that test light, which seems to be a good one right off the bell housing here. Well, maybe. Try to hook on something greasy. If I was real smart, I would hook the ground wire off the battery too. Big dummy. Alright, well. Okay, I think that's good enough ground. We're into our signal return wire. I'm going to hook this to our scope. Get our ground wire hooked up here. Key's still on. Where's my donger? There she is. You don't want to lose your donger. Let's see, we will go to our scope. Record. Where's our trace? Oh, because we got no trigger. But anyways, we're at 5.19 volts. No trigger. There we go. And now, when I hook to ground, if I do our bypass test, we should be able to see that. Yeah, so as I flicker it with the test light there, you can see it get pulled to ground. Well, folks, it looks like we have a bad sensor because we know we have good ground. We can do the bypass. Yeehaw. So we'll leave it at that unless the crankshaft is snapped off the reluctor wheel inside. We have a bad crankshaft position sensor and a bad coil. I don't know why. I'm sure there's going to be like tons of input on that, and I'm kind of curious to hear that. So we'll leave that at that. I don't know what the dealio is there. I'm going to order a crank sensor and a coil, and we'll get this fixed up. All right, well, only moments later, we've got our crank sensor here, and what we can do, proof of concept, before we even put this little guy in the block, because these are a pain to get out sometimes, we can do a bypass test just like that, plug it in, and let's see here, I still got our scope sitting here. So let me back probe these wires. I just went and turned the key back on before I picked it back up here. Okay, got that back probe there. Hook you up on a good ground. And what I'll do is I'll take and I'll just wave the transmission, wave this in front of like transmission lines or the oil pan or something. We should be able to watch this change. And I went ahead just for the heck of it. I unplugged the cam sensor's right above my head, so I unplugged that so we don't keep firing these fuel injectors and stuff. I don't want to get this thing flooded out any more than it already has been or whatever. Guys, at this point we need to change oil on it anyhow. So the cam sensor or crank sensor is plugged in, and we can see key on, engine off. We're at the 5.19 volts. When I bring this to ground, it should close this Hall effect switch, bringing it to ground. So right there, I just stuck it on the training line. So I'll put it on the training line, off, on, off. So you can see, of course, it's not triggering the fuel pump and stuff because I unplugged the cam sensor. Like I said, I just don't want to get this thing all flooded out. All right, well, I'm gonna let it back down, shut the key off. I'm gonna change this. And these things are kind of a tricky sensor to change, I'll be honest with you. They rust in the black, and they're kind of a mess how they're made. So they sit down in, the O-ring's down in, but the block actually goes past this O-ring part. You get rusty, and trying to get them out, it can be a disaster. This one looks pretty clean. So we'll see how it goes. All right, so it appears that all my whining and crying paid off. That was the easiest Jeep crank sensor I've ever taken out. Essentially take the nut off, or the bolt, this thing popped right out, man. I was super thankful for that. So we'll take our coil, we'll right here, we'll get this popped in. I can find the hole here. I still can't explain the coil catching on fire and burning up. That doesn't make sense because you have to have current. There has to be current flow. There should be no current flow. Key on, engine off here. We prove that because we have no power. Unless I don't know. Well, I'm still baffled at that as to why that could have happened. All right, so, well, this thing was pretty severely flooded. We're definitely going to change the oil. You guys seen that when we first started doing our initial, cranking business there. All right, what we can do, we won't bother probing our cam crank. We'll start it up, see how it runs, see if we got any, fouled out plugs and stuff. Of course, we ran it for a little bit without that coil, so it may have that plug wetted down. So we'll fire it up. Feels a little rough, definitely got a cylinder misfiring. Grab our scan tool here. We'll pop into a misfire counter. We'll see which one. It might be that one that had that bad coil. Or maybe it's none. What the heck? How come we don't have a misfire counter going on here? Maybe because it still has the code in it for the crank sensor, so maybe it's not using it because it has that code stored. Seemed to start pretty quickly. Current sync is now okay. So that's weird. I don't know why the heck we don't have a. Let's see our code. See if our code's still there. Ignition coil number 3 primary circuit. How come we got an ignition coil code now? I'm going to go ahead and clear these codes. So that seems kind of bizarre that we had a, because we had the intake air temp sensor and stuff unplugged there, but how come all of a sudden we've got those codes. All right, so I think we just cleared them. These Chrysler's got to do key on engine off. We'll just go real quick to see if we have any codes currently. Okay, no codes. I'm gonna take it started up. A lot of times on a Chrysler, it's been my experience, if you unplug a coil and you set a coil primary circuit code and you plug the coil back in, it won't turn that coil primary circuit on until you clear the code, sometimes when you cycle the key. So that's my guess, possibly. Still sounds a little rough. No codes. Trying any one-trip codes, no. So let's see if we'll go into system test, misfire counters, see if we can tell what cylinder it is here. Yeah. No misfire counters. Guess we're going to figure this out the old-fashioned way. I'm just going to start with the coils on this side. We'll start with the one that we just changed. I'll unplug it. That one definitely makes a difference here. Well, maybe it doesn't. Like I say, sometimes unplugging coils doesn't work that well on a Chrysler. I'll take the nut back off this thing. Pull it up out of there a little bit. I'm going to unplug this intake air temp sensor. Yeah, I can hear it sparking. I'll stick it on the spark plug, pull it off. Yeah, we better have a look at that plug. Yeah, I can hear it snapping a pretty healthy spark down there. Let's see if we can get the spark plug out without any issues. Might have just followed the plug. This will give us an idea as to condition of these spark plugs anyways. I still would really like to know what happened to that coil. That is so bizarre. All right, well, plug's black, NGK. Who the heck puts NGK plugs in a Jeep? All right, so just for the heck of it, we'll take and plug this in. This should have some nice spark for us. Plug our intake air temp sensor back on. She's gonna make some noise when we crank it over. Figure out how to put that connector on. Let me get a ground wire. We'll take and get this little guy grounded out. Just ground it on that electrode. See if I can do this without getting electrocuted. Let me do the nice thing. There. Gosh, get her set up there where we can. Make sure we didn't have a lot of trash down there. We don't. All right, Hannah, go ahead and start it up for me, would you? All right, shut off. Felt like we had good compression. Just a second, Hannah. I need to move my jump wire here. Need to get it where we can actually get the spark to come across the electrode properly. All right, Hannah, go ahead and start it. Shut off. Okay, so our spark plug is sparking. So that's good. It's black, but it's sparking. Sounds like our piston is a pumping. She black, but maybe I misdiagnosed it there. Maybe it's not the cylinder. It didn't sound like it was changing much. Now, I'm going to get this screwed in and then we'll continue on with our diagnosis here. I think there's probably an injector disabled test or something on the scan tools. Maybe we'll unplug the idle air control valve and just pop along that way, being that those coils are a little more difficult to get to. So we got her back up and running again. I unplugged the idle air control valve. I'm going to go to this injector kill test, which is probably what I should have done initially, but coil pack's right there. I'm going to disable the number 1 injector. I don't really see much of a change there. I just turned it back on. Okay, disable number 2. Okay, that's a big change. Number 2. I'm gonna disable number 1 again. Maybe we got it the first try. Oh no, there it goes. Number 1 definitely chugged it down. Okay. Number 3. That definitely worked. Number 4. Nothing. Turn it back on. Alright, looks like number 4 is our culprit. Nothing changed there. Turn it off number 4. Go to number 5. Okay. Alright, number 5 is good. I guess we'll just do our last one. We're right here. Number 6. Okay, yep. So it appears and when we go to injector number 4, we disable it, nothing happens. All right, Hannah, you can shut off, please. All right, so what we can do, I don't know what cylinder is what here. Neat feature about this tool, sometimes we go to troubleshooter, and then perhaps like general information. There we go, cylinder orientation. So this is kind of helpful. Sometimes we don't have to look on Mitchell. V6 roll drive 3739, 135. Oh, okay, yep. Front to back 135. Wait a minute, I think we're missing something here. Oh, right bank. Yeah, this is kind of goofed up here. Right bank, front of engine to back 246. So passenger side. Let's see, left bank. So it's gonna be driver's side, front to back, 135. So we're 135, 246. So it's the middle bank on that side is the one that is not contributing for whatever reason. It's gonna be this little guy right here. So I'll unplug this coil. Got that unplugged. What we'll do, because this engine was flooded, I can only suspect, you know, a wet spark plug. So we'll take and pull this coil out real quick and just have a quick look at that, just, you know, visual inspection. You know, just because this was a good running vehicle prior to it just shutting off, which is likely from the bad crank sensor in the coil that decided to catch on fire on its own for no apparent reason, which I can't explain just yet. And I have no explanation for it. And I may not have an explanation for it. This coil shows no signs of exploding. Oh gosh. Oh man, let's do that on camera. Let's see. So I'll take and yank this spark plug out. Hopefully it's just a bottle spark plug. NGKs. I wonder who put NGKs in this. That's weird. Well, that spark plug looks just about like the other one. It's just black. Yeesh. We got another bad coil, maybe? Wouldn't that be wild? Wouldn't that be the weirdest thing? So let's take being that we got it out, I half expected to see the spark plug just super black. The hole's good and clean, so we don't have to worry about firing up here. Let me get my jump wire and stuff, we'll fire this thing up. Got the same setup here, we're hooked to the ground. Guess we can't see it. All right, Hannah, go ahead and start it. Well, that's weird. We got spark. You can shut it off, Hannah. We got spark, and the spark plug's black, and the cylinder sounds like it's poofing. It was cylinder 4, right? Yeah, cylinder 4 that was not contributing. Let me just see here. Injector is plugged in on that cylinder, okay? So this is pretty wild. Well, I'm gonna get this stuck back in there. You know, even though it's black, I mean, it's spark plug sparks. It's super weird. Guess we'll just keep on. So the other day I put up the video on the Durango where I screwed up. We'll call this part 2. The reason that spark plug was sparking and looking so good is because, well, that's the number 2 coil. Now we're going to take out the number 4. Evidently I have an inability to count, and I just took out the first one. Wow, there's a waste of footage. But I guess it just proves I'm human. Crap, this thing's right underneath this jug. I can't get my fat meat nugget finger under there to unhook it. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Well, I'm gonna get number 2 bolted back down, and then we're gonna pull out number 4 here. I'm gonna have to reach under here with a hook to get it unplugged. Because or maybe I'll just take this jug off. I don't. Yeesh. Okay. All right, well, we've got number. I'll be damned. Look at that. Wait a minute, is that smoke? Do you see smoke, Hannah?
I see smoke.
I see. That doesn't smell like. That doesn't smell like the first coil. That you know, that smells like antifreeze. Is that antifreeze in this hole? Well, no, she looks dry. And what in the thunder is happening with this Jeep? Look at this thing. So it is smoking, but I mean, like I said, it smells like coolant. It has a little bit of moisture on it. I don't think, unless when I was pulling it out, maybe I hit on the overflow here. The overflow is right above this coil, man. Maybe just the vapor action. I don't know. I'm just trying to find an excuse. But look at this coil. Let me find the burned up one. So here's the one that burst into flames on us. Here's this coil. It's doing the same stinking thing. What in the thunder is happening with this Jeep? This is just wild that those coils are doing that. I seen this once on a Dodge Dakota V6. It came in and the coils were split apart like this. You know, it came in with a misfire. I checked it out. I ended up replacing like 3 coils. 3 of the coils look like this. Truck barely ran. Before I changed the coils though, that had a bunch of injector driver codes in it, or ignition coil driver codes in it, and I checked them and it burnt the drivers out of PCM. We ended up replacing 3 coils and putting a box on it, and that fixed it. But this is bizarre. I need to call down and get another coil, but I'll tell you, before I do that, all these are coming out. I'm getting a set of Champion plugs for it. I'm going to test this driver and see if that's any good. This is wild. I don't have an explanation. So I'm over here looking up some spark plugs for this, and I always look up the OEM. Shame on me. Second mistake of the day. This thing takes NGKs from the factory. I just guess I've never paid attention. I know I've tuned these Liberties up in the past, and that just does not ring a bell with me. The 4-banger uses some Champions, but now this 3.7 uses NGKs. Geez, well, I guess you can't know everything, right? So there, we've got all 6 spark plugs out, and they all look fine except for being black. All the rest of the coils look good, you know, old and dirty. 3 of them have blue O-rings on them. The OEM ones, the OEM burned up ones, have blue O-rings. I assume they're OEM. Totally bizarre. I don't understand that. You know, I guess I can understand one getting nuked. You know, the secondary starting to short or something like that, you know, making the coil run abnormally hot. But the one that bothers me the most is the key-on engine off, and I've probably overexpressed that in this video, because you have to have electricity to have current flow to generate heat. And key-on engine off, there's nothing at the coils on these. Like I said, I can understand coil failure. I don't understand key on engine off. You know, battery charger, not. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you can't turn the key on the battery charger. Well, you can. It's, you know, it's no more than the current that the alternator will put out. It's only 20 amps. It's, you know, I don't know what, 14 volts. We can throw a meter on it and check, but it's totally safe. Done it, you know, thousands of times. And besides, even with that being said, you know, it's still not putting current to the coil. I don't understand that. And that kind of worries me a little bit. Is there something else wrong here? Gosh, I mean, what if that did that key off in this fella's garage? You know, that would concern me. Up in smoke, baby. So, just real quick, I just, you know, pulled the plugs out, pulled the coil, I want to see if anything was melted before I order any parts. What we're gonna do is just take a known good coil and a spark plug. We're gonna throw it in that number 4, and that's the fastest way to do a driver check. We could use the scope and all the fancy stuff, but there's fancy pants right there. And when we're all done, assuming the driver's good, we're gonna grab our cam crank correlation simply because the vehicle's here and the connector's off it, and then we have a known good for the future. But we're also gonna current ramp these injectors, hopefully, if we can do them all at one time on one fuse, and see what that looks like. This is so weird. So I got our ignition coil hooked up to, make 100% sure here because I can't count. The number 4, yeah, I'm definitely on the number 4. I got a ground wire hooked to it, so we're just gonna crank it over, obviously it's not gonna start. Go ahead and crank it, Hannah. Yeah, that's good. Fantastic. So fortunately for this fella, it did not burn up the coil driver. I don't understand how this Jeep could have been running fine, and all of a sudden we nuked 2 coils and a crank sensor. I can say this though, the coil driver is good. You know, it sparks the spark plug. That's all we needed to know. I guess my other question would be, when I started it this morning, of course I had to jump start it. I'm just trying to play this through my head. I jump started it, pulled up from the door, it ran fine. You know, give her the old rev up, tune up, sound good, wasn't flooded. I was doing something, came back, like say about 15 minutes later or so, at least I think that's the story I gave you, and you know, found out that it was dead outside, pushed it in, and it reeked like gas. I mean, just like severely reeked like gas, like super flooded, almost like, you know, just crazy. And then you seen that it was actually flooded because when we went to try to start it, you know, it was obviously, you know, really flooded. Spark plugs say it was flooded. So I wish I could have heard it die outside. I didn't hear it. I don't know if it sat there chugging, if you know, this crank sensor just went wonky and started sending some really, you know, erroneous signals to the PCM and then flooded it somehow, you know, sitting there with the key on, engine off. If it was, you know, perhaps it kept pulling itself to ground and just kept firing the injectors and the coils. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but it was obviously flooded. This is just all too weird to happen at once. Okay, well, I've got all 6 spark plugs changed. Pretty simple. Bone draining like crazy today. So that's done. What else? Oh, I cleared the codes because, you know, the key was on, coils were unhooked, idle air control valve, all that stuff. So I cleared the codes. Let's see what we have. Nice and smooth now. I'm gonna let it sit here and warm up and run a little bit. sure we don't have any other anomalies. Let the idle air control valve kind of get itself all figured out again. Well, we got this cover off the PCM before I put that on. I'm definitely going to grab a cam crank correlation. I'll see if I can find somewhere where we can current ramp these primary side of these coils too. So it's warming up on us here. Sounds nice and smooth, you know, obviously no skipping. Man, that is just so wild. I would tell you, I do know we need to change oil. I mean, as flooded as that was, that's definitely the, you know, wise decision. It's due for a service anyway, so that worked out spectacular. Give it a little, you know, engine flush. No charge. I want to take and, like I said, we got that cover off. We'll do a current ramp or a cam crank correlation. Maybe I already said that probably 5 or 6 times by now. I don't know, folks. All right, where are we? All right, so we've got our scope hooked up. We're going to take and flip right back to that. Turn the key on, Hannah, would you? Oh, guess I gotta hook up a ground. That always helps, right? Always makes things better on the scope. Okay, so the key is on right now, and we've got 5.19 volts on each sensor, so we likely have a good connection there. Go ahead and start it, Hannah, if you would, please. Okay. Let me just make 100% sure. Alright, well, I'm going to change some of my scales here so we can see this a little better. We're going to set up a trigger on the crank sensor, one of them, and we'll capture the data here and take a peek at that. Being that the vehicle runs good, we know it has a new crank sensor and everything's in sync. Capture ourselves a nice waveform here. Alright, so we'll stop it, record it. Stop it. That should be enough data for us. See if we can find 720 degrees here. So that looks like, so from here, so that's our cam signal, pretty much where that cursor is from there to there. That appears to be 720 degrees. Yep, so that is, yeah. So I guess that's what 720 of the crank looks like. Looks like the crank has 4 notches and then a opening there. Looks very systematic all the way across, very repeatable. Oh, we don't want to save the configuration. Save all frames. Rookie mistake. All right, well, we got a problem. Shut the key off, Hannah. We were just sitting here saving this data, and you didn't shut off, Hannah?
No, my hands weren't even close to it.
Weren't even close, and the thing just stalled. All right, well, let me finish saving our known good waveform. This thing just gets weirder by the minute here. Let's see, Jeep cam crank 3703. I'll go back and edit that later. Let's go back live. Turn the key on, Hannah. Okay, we're at 5 volts. Go ahead and crank it. Huh. Well, there it goes. Oh crap, what's going on here? Shut the key off, man.